And then as far as the science, obviously there's, I wrote a science fiction trilogy, middle grade, and toward the end I started to get nervous because like the technology is catching up to what was speculation a few years ago, like, and now I can't even write flying saucer books because they're going to disclose all the truth about UFOs, and then I'm done. I'm out.
Yeah.
I can't give lies about the aliens anymore. Do you? You're obviously you're pretty far out. You've got Sabrina, which I felt like was nanobots, but maybe I'm wrong about that.
Nope. Yep, she's nanobots.
And you've got Sabrina. You've got portals. Do you worry about, as a science fiction writer, do you worry about the incredible, miraculous time that we're living in? That it's wonderful to live in, terrible to try to be writing speculative science fiction that's a few years out in.
Well, I mean, I'm just coming off of having my book that just came out. It takes place about the same time as JILLIAN, actually just several years later, I guess, in the same timeline. And it's about how, like, a lot of the reality that we're living in now, like the bad parts, like, you know, the climate change stuff and the corporate consolidation has like moved forward 100 years in the future to where it's literally like two corporations that own everything, and it's a literal civil war. And there's water rationing and electricity rationing and all kinds of fun stuff. So I think for me, it's maybe even the opposite. It's that like I can see, I guess I'm pessimistic about it, and that I see like all of the bad things that are just going to get worse, and I have a hard time like focusing on the cool stuff that might come about, because just the swift collapse of everything right now that's happening. But it's really bleak. But yeah, it would be very cool if we had portal-based travel and intelligent nanobots and stuff. So I don't worry about it. I think it would be cool. And I have like kind of a weird fiction background. So if I owe the idea of Sabrina to anything, it's not even like science fiction or even reality. It's probably like Jake the dog from Adventure Time, who could like turn into all different shapes. Like Sabrina kind of takes it a step further in that she actually can like perform different functions. But the shape shifting into anything, there's absolutely definitely some Jake the dog in Sabrina. Yeah. I don't know. I like taking influences from everywhere, and if some of these things come to pass, cool. But in the meantime, like I think there's a while before some of this reality catches up with us, and you know, it's gonna be like my kid's gonna grow up, and his generation is gonna be reading stuff that like other science fiction writers and myself have been writing now, and they'd be like, oh, this aged terribly, this stuff all, you know, happened, this is all old school stuff now, it's like it's retro. And there's nothing I can do about that, so I just have fun with it while I can.
Fair enough. I always thought the Foundation trilogy, Asimov, I always thought that was the most optimistic science fiction writer book. This idea of a society or of a man, I believe, can predict exactly what's going to happen hundreds of years to a T. Like, oh, he wanted to be that person, and I understand. I don't think that's possible, but I like the dream of that.
Yeah.
So, with the science, because you want to pass your father's smell test, you want the reviewers to say that this is solid science. How do you go about doing your research on nanobots, on making a plausible portal, and how plausible do you feel some of this stuff is?
Well, with the technology we have now, I mean, really, none of it's plausible. The only thing that I think really is the parasite that they encounter there. And I didn't really do research into portals and nanobots, like my understanding of those things. I read some stuff just in passing, but not really like as research, just as in kind of like, these are cool articles that I've read over the years. And just like some like incipient technologies in those ways, like obviously nanobots are a ways off of Sabrina, but the parasite is very firmly based in parasites that we have here on Earth. Like there are some very, 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 very strange parasites that manipulate their host's behavior in ways that benefit the parasite to the destruction of the host. And there are so elaborate the way that evolution has designed these parasites to kind of co-evolve along with their hosts. And I read a number of books about those. I read Parasite Rex by Carl Zimmer, which that was probably the first one I read. And This Is Your Brain on Parasites by Kathleen McAuliffe, and Flight of the Living Dead, which is a fantastic title for a book of essays about mind control parasites. That's by Matt Simon. Those were like absolutely indispensable research for me with this book, because I wanted my parasite to have a viable life cycle that made sense. Like the other stuff, like the portal-based space travel, is very hand wavy. It kind of has to be by definition. I didn't want to even try in a kid's book to like try to explain, like try to give them some kind of hard science explanation for like how a portal would work, or how the nanobots work. It was just part of the world that Jillian lives in, and it's explained to her in a way that she can understand, to give her kind of a working definition of how these things work. But the parasite, she has to figure out for the purposes of the plot, like what it's doing and like what it might do to her and how to keep it from doing that. And so that was the part that I really extensively researched, and it was a lot of fun because it is fascinating in a very kind of squicky body horror kind of way, what parasites are doing to insects and other animals here on Earth right now. It's just fascinating.
Is there a wasp that lands in the brain? You know what? I'm gonna half remember it.
Yeah. It's the emerald jewel wasp, I think, and it like lobotomizes cockroaches, and it kind of like takes off their antennae and then drives them into a burrow and then lays eggs in it. And so the cockroach just is totally chill this entire time, doesn't try to get away, doesn't do anything, because the wasp has just very delicately lobotomized it and made it so it can't really do anything about it. And there's a fungus that preys on ants that basically like makes the ant seem entirely normal, because if the ant doesn't seem normal, the colony will be onto it and kick it out. Up until the ant seems entirely normal, while this fungus is just completely invading its entire body and like enmeshing in its muscles and just literally just driving this ant around. And then when the fungus is ready to fruit, it will take the ant and tell the ant, okay, now go up this stalk of grass and go up to a very specific height at a very specific time of day, because this is the optimal place and temperature and humidity level for when the fruiting body of this mushroom comes out of the ant's head, and the spores will rain down on the other ants that are marching along below. And it's just like, it's so cool.
Do you, is that a fear of yours, that there will be a parasite eventually like that for us?
No, it's like, not really. I mean, there have been a couple of books, novels recently-ish, that have to do with a parasite infection that attacks humans. There was one that was called The Fireman by Joe Hill, I think. And The Girl with All the Gifts, I think, was a fungal infection, I think.
That
so
one,
it's just, yeah.
I read that one. I haven't read this one.
Yeah. So it's interesting to see that it's getting some play in fiction, because it's just like, it's low-hanging fruit. It is just so much like interesting stuff there that you could work with, and there's all different things you could have a parasite do to people. It's just like, I don't know. It's really interesting, and I don't think very many people are writing about it yet, but they should be, so I can read their books, because I find it fascinating.